legal tampering period has officially begun. I'm super excited. It means we're just one step closer to free agency and one step closer to the NFL draft. I'm curious to see what Brian Gutekunst and the Green Bay Packers do to improve their already good roster, the youngest roster in the league, but they need to make some moves in order to take that next step forward. We all know that and understand that, but the legal tampering period has officially begun. Some of you might not know what that is. It started in 2012. Essentially, what it is it's supposed to eliminate backroom talk and backroom deals happening before the free agent period begins. This kind of cuts that out. Mind you, those things are still probably happening and taking place, but nonetheless, super excited that it has officially begun. Okay, so leave your comments and let me know what you think the likelihood is of the Packers making a move, because as it stands right now, it's easy to look at what the Packers have not done or potential missed opportunities that have taken place that we're going to take a look at here in a second and get frustrated and get super angry towards the Packer organization and say, man, it's the same old Packer organization. It's Brian Gutekunst, stop making moves. But take a deep breath, pause. There's still a lot of really good players out there. Okay, so one of the players that was rumored to go to Green Bay was Deebo Samuel, and the Packers would have had to trade for him. We know that that is not in Brian Gutekunst's arsenal to give up draft capital to go and sign a player like Deebo Samuel, who is owed $17.6 million this year. And then they're going to probably try to restructure something long-term for Deebo. Certainly would make an impact on any team that he's going to go to. He's going to make a huge impact on that Commander offense. That Commander team, man, you got to give it to them. They just keep getting better with a move like that. And then you've got Devontae Adams, which seemed to be a very affordable option out there for the Packers to go and get that number one. Was he going to end his career in Green Bay? Well, that obviously is not happening. He signs with the Rams, and he signs for cheap, $8 million base salary this year and $16 million in 2026. The Packers certainly could have afforded that. He's got an overall PFF score of 75.8. Yes, he is 32 years old. He's going to be 33, but the dude still has so much gas left in the tank, probably 2 years left of gas in the tank of good football. He could have been that number one caliber type wide receiver coming into Green Bay. A little disappointed that the Packers didn't go and get him. He joins the Rams. You got DK Metcalf, who then, the Seattle was like, hey, see what's out there. Start talking to other teams. DK Metcalf, of course, was rumored to go to Green Bay. That doesn't happen either. He ends up restructuring a deal with his new team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, for 4 years, $132 million. Oh, by the way, Aaron Rodgers is now the favorite to go to Pittsburgh and join that arsenal, all the weaponry that is currently in Pittsburgh. Leave your comments. Let me know your thoughts about that as well. So then on the flip side, the defensive side of the ball, there's of course rumors out there that Max Crosby is going to be joining other teams out there. That doesn't happen. Crosby ends up staying. He's actually he's trying to get Rodgers to come and play there. I don't see what good that would do. I don't see the Raiders as an instant contender by any stretch of the imagination. But Max Crosby is retained by the Raiders, which means he's not going to be a Packer. He's not going to be joining the rest of the NFC North, which is great news. And then you got Myles Garrett, who, of course, all us Packer fans are like, man, that would be a great wish list type of caliber guy. He signs record-breaking deal money to stay with the Browns. Man, the Browns just continue, to be in debt as an organization. So you take a look at the Packers, who don't make a ton of moves out there, but they're not so far in debt that like these other teams, like Atlanta, like Cleveland. Speaking of Atlanta, you've got Drew Dahlman. Okay, so you've got Drew Dahlman out there right now as it stands. That is the guy that I want on our offensive line. I think that's the only weak spot we have at center. I would love for the Packers, Brian Gutekunst, to go out there and sign Drew Dahlman. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the NFC North here for just a second. Okay, so the Lions. What have the Lions done so far? Okay, we already know what the Packers have done to retain a couple of their players. They're mainly the kicker. That needed to happen. But the Lions have signed Derek Barnes, the linebacker in Detroit. They were able to retain him. They were able to retain their defensive end, Davenport. but they did drop Zadarius Smith. So Zadarius Smith is out there. They do drop him. They're going to be getting Hawkinson back and all the other injuries that they're going to be getting retained. Okay. So the Bears, you look at them. What have the Bears done? Well, you look at the inefficiencies of that offensive line. Caleb Williams was probably, I think, top 2 most pressured quarterbacks in the NFL this last year. So what do they do? What were their weak spots on that Bears team? It was their offensive line and their coach. They addressed the coaching issue by signing Ben Johnson, taking him, and a lot of the coaching staff really in Detroit goes to Chicago. And what have they done? They've bolstered the offensive line. They signed 2 really good offensive linemen, 2 guards that were a desperate need for the Bears. They signed Joe Thuney and then Jonah Jackson. They signed both those guys. And guess who the favorite is to go and get Drew Dalman, who has been actively pursuing Drew Dalman? The Chicago Bears, which pisses me off because that would make the Bears' offensive line quite good at that point in time, which means the Packers need to put some pressure on that, which means we need an edge rusher. Okay. On one side, you got Rashawn Gary, but he can't be a one-man show. Yes, you've got guys like Brenton Cox there, or Aaron Mosby, but those guys are not just going to be the consistent guy to get the pressure on the opposing quarterback. And then if the Chicago Bears are having a stout offensive line, oh, by the way, they're going to have the 10th pick in the draft, and they're projected to go and get that running back. That's going to make the Bears quite good all of a sudden. Okay, so then you've got Josh Sweat. Okay, so Josh Sweat as an end. So when we start pivoting and going to an end, Trey Hendrickson is another guy that the Bears are projected to go out there and get. Trey Hendrickson, we already know this dude is a wrecking crew. He had 18 sacks. He has an overall PFF score of an 88.1. This dude can get it done, and the Chicago Bears have the money to get it done. Josh Sweat right now, the current favorite to get Josh Sweat in free agency as it sits right now is the Detroit Lions. Okay, so they release Zadarius Smith because they've got plans to go and get somebody else. Davenport's not going to get it done on the other side. They obviously have bigger plans in mind, and Josh Sweat being one of those guys. Okay, so you notice a theme here that the Bears are going out and signing players already, trading for players. They didn't really have to give up much draft capital at all to go get those offensive guards. And then you've got you've got the Detroit Lions, who are favorites to go and get big name players. And then you've got the Minnesota Vikings. What have they done? Well, they signed Aaron Jones. I don't know if you saw that, but they threw a bunch of money at him. Okay, so with his age, I was shocked at the money that the Minnesota Vikings gave him, which was 2 years, 20 million, 10 million a year. Okay, so let's take a look at the remaining edge defenders out there that are current free agents. You got Joey Bosa. In my opinion, if Joey Bosa came to Green Bay, I'm not going to be upset about it. I'm not going to be pissed. However, if we're going to be letting go of Jair Alexander, it seems like we would be taking on the same type of caliber player, meaning a guy that's always hurt, Joey Bosa, and throwing a bunch of money at him. So I don't see how the Packers really win in that deal. Sure, it would be great to have a Joey Bosa on the other end. Again, I wouldn't be pissed or wouldn't be upset that Brian Gutekunst went and did that. But to me, it's like getting another Jair Alexander out there. Great, you got an amazing player that you're paying a ton of money to, but the dude's never out there. So he's playing like 6 games a year, okay, 7 games a year. What good is that going to do you when you're making a push for the playoffs and you need to handle just the NFC North competition alone? Then you got Khalil Mack out there, which, by the way, Khalil Mack is also rumored to go to Detroit if they don't get Sweat. So hopefully the Packers can get one of those 2 guys, Khalil Mack or Sweat. You've got Chase Young still out there. I don't see Zadarius Smith having or improving the Packer defensive edge rushing there. So I don't expect them to do that. Leave your comments. Let me know what you think there. Who would you rather have, Josh Sweat or Khalil Mack? Okay, so then you've got interior offensive lineman. Drew Dalman is the only guy on this list that I think would make a big impact on the Packer offensive line. I think this would be a huge home run hit for Brian Gutekunst to go out there and get a Drew Dalman. And then for the cornerback position, that is the other position that we need in a big way. My number one guy, of course, I've talked about it a ton, is Byron Murphy Jr. or DJ Reed. Those two guys are available. Of course, you've got Asante Samuel. I don't think that would, I mean, unless the Packers retain Jair Alexander, they get Asante Samuel on the other side. Maybe, Travarius Ward, same type of deal there. You'd have to keep a Jair Alexander, restructure a deal to minimize the blow that the Packers financially would take against the cap with Jair Alexander to get one of those other guys. But you need a big number one guy, and to me, that's going to be consistently out there would be Byron Murphy or DJ Reed. Leave your comments. I'm super excited. The period has begun. Go Pack, go.